Well, hello again. Politically incorrect old white guy here. It's been a while since I've appeared on YouTube, and today I'd like to spend some time talking about fascism, a word we hear all too often these days. And interestingly, this recording is being made after the weekend of the No Kings demonstrations, which were organized across the nation, which is ironic because if you know anything about fascism, it's got nothing to do with monarchy. These are two separate, distinct concepts of national leadership. So you can't be a fascist and be a king. I don't think that the monarchy is one thing. Fascist is something completely different. So there are some folks out there who obviously can't make up their mind as to how to characterize the current administration and President Trump in particular. So I would bet that most people who throw the word fascism around have no clue what fascism really means. And in particular, this Antifa group um, has no clue, uh, or they pretend not to have any clue as to what fascism is. Let's read here from Encyclopedia Britannica, which is about as staid as it gets and unbiased as it gets. Let's see what they have to say about fascist movements. Okay, so turns out that there is disagreement as to what fascism really is all about. Some believe that it's a socially radical movement with ideological ties to the Jacobins of the French Revolution. So let's have a look at the Jacobins and see what they were all about. The Jacobin Club was a group of political activists around the time of the French Revolution, and their whole thing was extreme egalitarianism and violence, which led the revolutionary government from 1793 to 1794. So I don't know that Trump espouses extreme egalitarianism at all. If anything, uh, that's what the Democratic Party of today, particularly the far left, is all about. If you remember, there were three slogans that Kamala Harris bandied about during her campaign, and one of them was equity. Well, equity and egalitarianism are the same thing. The other two slogans or words that the French Revolution used were égalité fraternité, which means brotherhood, which Kamala um, used a similar word to describe her campaign values, and that was unity. Brotherliness or brotherhood and unity are much the same thing in the political world. So there we have uh, Kamala acting like a Jacobin, which some people say is the origin of the fascist movement. And then the third buzzword that the French used, besides égalité, fraternité, uh, was oh gosh, I'm having a mental block here for a moment. Um, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. But unsurprisingly, Kamala used a similar word in her campaign. She was all about uh, equity, unity, and what the heck was it? I guess it was pretty forgettable. So I guess my question at this point is who's the fascist now? Is it Kamala or is it uh, Trump? So you can read about these Jacobins and their violent overthrow of the so-called aristocrats and what have you. Let's go back to the description or common characteristics of fascist movements here for a second. So that's one school of thought that this fascism stems from the ideology of the French Revolution. And the other thought is the other school of thought is that it's an extreme form of conservatism, a backlash against the ideals of the Enlightenment. And I suppose, that is somewhat aligned with the finger pointing of the left that the right wing or the conservative movement is fascist. Yeah, I guess there's no last word on this subject. So the two big historical examples of fascism are Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany. And one of the interesting things about Hitler is Hitler was radically anti-Semite. That was sort of one of the pillars of his whole political ideology. And I would ask who of the two parties in the United States is more anti-Semitic these days? It's certainly not the Republicans, it's the Democrats. They're anti-Semitic as all get out, which is surprising, but they're viciously anti-Semitic. So again, who's the fascist now? They say that Mussolini was not big on anti-Semitism, at least not to begin with. But later, when he piled up with Hitler, he shipped off his Jews to Germany to the same concentration camps that the Jews of Germany and Eastern Europe ended up in. So that's another kind of curious historical fact. Some feel that fascism has a religious aspect, and that it also is aligned with capitalism and elitism. Again, I can point to, who do the elites in the United States support? Do they support the Democrats? Do they support the Republicans? I think the intellectual elites and many of the most wealthy figures in the United States support the Democrats. So, yeah, again, there's plenty of finger pointing to go around. Let's have a look at the common characteristics now. Opposition to Marxism and socialism. I guess Hitler was radically anti-communist, and I suppose one could, of the two parties in the United States, one could legitimately state that this aspect or this characteristic of fascism belongs more with the Republican Party than it does with the Democrat Party. So there's an element of support for their epithets in this aspect here. But if you read with more detail, the way fascists dealt with these people was through their little political, their military wing of their political party. In the case of Mussolini, he had the black shirts, and that's kind of curious because who's running around in black garb in the United States right now? With with or without the official blessing of the Democrats, and that is the Antifa movement. The Nazis had brown shirts, I guess, and they they beat up on people that Hitler didn't like. So you've got these private little armies of useful idiots on both in both cases that use violence against their perceived opponents in society. I don't see any MAGA people running around in black garb, beating up on whoever they, don't agree with. But I do see plenty of Democrat supporters doing that. So that's one of the characteristics. Opposition to parliamentary democracy. In other words, they don't want to bother with the will of the people. They see democracy as the avenue that the Marxists used to get into power. And Hitler characterized it as the rule by the lowest common denominator, basically. To all of the allegations of democracy hanging on a thread and blah, 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 I don't see any real indication that the Republican Party, or Trump for that matter, are against democracy as the dominant political ideology of the United States. So I'll call that one a draw. I've certainly can point to a number of examples around the world where the left were the people that eliminated democracy and instituted one-party states. That's the typical socialist dream, is one-party rule. I don't think any Republicans aspire to that. So that's the next characteristic. Opposition to political and cultural liberalism. What does this mean? The fascists claim that cultural liberalism encourages moral relativism, godless materialism, and selfish individualism, and then thus undermine traditional morality. Anti-Semitic fascists associated liberalism with Jews in particular. Indeed, one precursor of Nazism, the political theorist Theodor Fritsch, claimed that to succumb to a liberal idea was to succumb to the Jew within oneself. So again, there's fingers pointed in both directions there on that aspect of the discussion. Totalitarian ambitions, and fascists have the ambitions for controlling every aspect of your life. Control all political power, dominate many institutions and organizations such as courts, churches, universities, social clubs, veteran groups, sports associations, and youth groups. In other words, total control over the populace. Even the German family came under assault, as members of the Hitler Youth were told that it was their patriotic duty to inform on anti-Nazi parents. Well, during COVID, I seem to recall that it was the Democrats that encouraged children to report their parents for being bad parents or not following the COVID mandate to the letter, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's fingers pointing in multiple directions on this one. what they do note here is that before these guys get total control, they disavow totalitarianism. This is interesting because it's often been said that the left accuses the right of exactly what they're doing or what they aspire to do. And as far as the economy is concerned, they favor a conservative approach to the economy. Fascists do. But here are two examples of fascists in Belgium and in France, where their goal was to achieve a fairer distribution of wealth by appealing to fascist nationalism and class conciliation. Wow, I wonder which of the two parties aspires to that. I think it comes back to that equity thing. And by the way, I remember the third leg of the French Revolution was liberty. Liberty, and of course, Kamala wanted freedom. She wanted freedom, equity, and unity, which is exactly what the fascists or Jacobins in France wanted. So again, Kamala, who's the fascist now? So conservative economic programs, but they wanted the government to control industry. If you read here, looking for the specific content, where fascists practice corporatism, and what that meant in their world was that the corporate world represented the third way between capitalism and communism. So fascism is in fact a rejection of capitalism and a rejection of communism, allowing for the harmonious cooperation of workers and employees for the good of the nation as a whole. So here's an interesting one. In 1936, for example, the economic program of the French Social Party included shorter working hours. Well, they're still doing that. They had like a 4-day work week in France. Vacations with pay for loyal workers, but not for disloyal ones, and benefits were to be assigned by employers, not the government. The Nazis, meanwhile, had a strength through joy program. Oh, I wonder where have I heard that word before? Joy, joy, joy. Oh, that was Kamala's buzzword during her campaign, that she was full of joy and she was bringing joy. I guess that was a euphemism for her cackle, was joy, but it seems like Kamala and these fascists have something in common when it comes to corporatism. They don't like capitalism. They want government intervention in the corporations. I guess the fascists don't like leftist unions. Well, I guess that's the Democrats love unions, so that's not common ground. But yeah, it's not cut and dried. Alleged equality of social status. This is another thing that the fascists want. They said fascists attack upper class snobbery. They want egalitarianism. Well, again, that sounds to me a lot like the left. It doesn't sound like the Trump at all. National socialism was said to occur when a Hitler youth from a rich family and a Hitler youth from a poor family became comrades. So you were all equal, again, equality, equity. Imperialism, here's where there is some validity to the allegations that the right, or that Trump is a fascist. They had fascist movements have imperialistic aims. Hitler conquered Eastern Europe and Russia. Trump wants to conquer Canada and Greenland, I guess, under the name of Lebensraum, with living space. Mussolini wanted to take over North Africa, and so on. So, yeah, maybe Trump has some little fascist streak in him when it comes to imperialism. I'm not sure he wants to. Well, I guess he does. He wants to take over Canada. Military values. Fascists favored military values such as courage, unquestioning obedience to authority, discipline, and physical strength. Paramilitary uniforms, Roman salutes. I don't see any uniforms on the right yet, anyway. I see them on the left. And I guess Mussolini was a big warmonger. He said, "A minute on the battlefield is worth a lifetime of peace." Well, I guess the Democrats have got us into plenty of wars and regime change wars, whereas Trump is not really promoting that concept. So let's talk about Volksgemeinschaft, a nation, racially unified and hierarchically organized body in which the interests of individuals would be strictly subordinate to those of the nation or folk. Like a military battalion, the people's community would be permanently prepared for war and would accept the discipline that this required. The French and Italians and Spanish did the same thing. The Japanese saw the nation like a family. Well, I read about a book that was written by Hillary Clinton about it takes a village, i.e. the children, it's our children. It's when the people obey their leaders in the same way children obey their parents. So there's a little fascist streak in old Hillary too. Mass mobilization, mass meetings, parades, and other gatherings. Well, I guess Trump has his campaign meetings, but now that he's in, he's kind of backed off on those, and there's nothing unusual about having a campaign meeting in a democratic society, having get-togethers. But this latest no kings thing seems to me to be part of this mass mobilization characteristic. So again, there's plenty of fascism to go around. The leadership principle, or Führersprinzip, the leadership principle, should have a single leader with absolute power. Mussolini was Il Duce and Hitler was the Führer, both words for leader, who gave the orders that everyone else had to obey, and it was often backed by charisma. So I guess Trump has the charisma. Certainly, Biden certainly didn't. But I don't know that. I think every politician aspires to this, frankly. I don't know that Trump uniquely aspires to it any more than any of the people on the left. So there we have something. Now we have something called the new man. They want to transform the ordinary man into the new man, a virile being who would put decadent bourgeoisie, cerebral Marxists, and feminine liberals to shame. Be physically strong and morally hard, despising everything weak and soft. as Hitler described him, the new man was slim and slender, quick like a greyhound, tough like leather, and hard like Krupp steel. I don't hear Trump talking about that much, although his Minister of War, I guess Defense, has voiced some of those ideals. You can't blame him. He's trying to run the military. Do you want your military to be weak and soft? No. But I don't hear Trump or anyone saying that the average man on the street has to be hard like Krupp steel. So there we have the new man, glorification of youth. Fascists praise the young for their physical strength and honor them for their idealism and spirit of self-sacrifice. I don't know that that Republicans are doing enough on the youth front. I suppose Charlie Kirk was active in that arena, trying to encourage conservatism among the youth. But I didn't see him talking about strong and slender bodies, vigorous and sure movements, and short sentences. I can't say that the Democrats are into any of that either. So that's kind of absent from both parties, as best I can tell. Education is character building. Again, I can't come up with a lot to say about that. Decadence and spirituality. The fascists are intolerant, repressive, and violent. I think the left is intolerant, frankly, not the right. I believe that, they were the party of cancel culture. They're the party of violent protests and intimidation. Not that they're struggling against decadence. I guess the fascists thought that the Jews were the most decadent population group of all. I do think that the left is very intolerant toward older white people, especially men. So maybe there is some of this that we can lay at the feet of the left, this intolerance, repression, and violence. And the fascists promoted spirituality instead of decadence. This German guy, Rome, said, fanatical love and hate, their fires kindle the flames of freedom. Yeah. Okay, now we come down to the violence part. Fascists react to their opponents with physical force. No other argument is admissible than that of fists and pistols when justice or the fatherland is attacked. I think this is really what the left is up to. I think Don Lemon recently on TV said that encouraged the hoi polloi to arm themselves and fight off ICE. And Antifa is all about violence. Again, as I said, the left accuses the right of doing exactly what they're doing. Mussolini had black shirts. Democrats have Antifa. Hitler had stormtroopers. They put the Marxists in concentration camps before they grabbed and rounded up the Jews. Hitler said, people accuse us of being barbarians. We are barbarians and we are proud of it. I guess, there was a common thread here that the fascists kill their opposition. In Romania, in Germany, the blood purge. Japan, they did the same thing. So who's shooting at Trump? Is it the MAGA people? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's the MAGA people shooting at Trump. I think it's these people on the left who are acting a little bit like fascists, don't you think? Extreme nationalism. Fascists espouse extreme nationalism and cultural parochialism. That's, I guess, America first. Or at least that's what the left is wanting us to believe. So maybe the fascist epithet applies to some degree in that regard. Although it's not, I don't think the MAGA people are intolerant of other races or cultures. In fact, Trump has gone out of his way to court blacks and Hispanics and Asians and what have you. And Trump's anti-immigrant policy is not anti-Hispanic. It is about legal versus illegal immigration. So this is not fair to lay this on Trump, I don't think. In France, they didn't like immigrants much, but these are the French didn't want France to be a refuge for the oppressed. They wanted France, sorry, to be a refuge for the oppressed, but not a depository for trash. Well, there's been fascism in a lot of different countries. Scapegoating. Fascists often blame their problems on scapegoats. Jews, Freemasons, and Marxists and immigrants were prominent among the groups that were demonized. I think, while Trump is anti-illegal immigrant, I don't think he's blaming them for the status quo in the United States or for the decline of the United States. Who he's blaming are past politicians that have given foreign countries put their interests ahead of those of the U.S. citizenry. I don't see him scapegoating them, really. So this cat doesn't really fit. Populism. This is about anti-intellectualism. Oh, yeah. Fascist populism did not attribute workers' hardships to big business and big landowners, and did not advocate measures such as progressive taxation, higher pay for industrial and farm workers, protection and right to strike. The fascists did not attribute workers' hardships to big business, which is what the Democrats certainly do. So I guess they get a pass on that. Revolutionary image. Fascists sometimes portrayed their movements as new and revolutionary to appeal to the young and blah, blah, blah. Who keeps talking about the struggle, and fighting, and it's the damn Democrats again. Um, the destruction of the Christian family. Fascism's claims to newness did not prevent its propagandists from pandering to fearful traditionalists who associated cultural modernism with secular humanism, feminism, sexual license, and the destruction of the Christian family. Well, we know who wants to destroy the Christian family, don't we? Anti-urbanism. The Nazis won most of their support from rural areas and small towns. Well, that's true of the Republican Party. Romanian fascism relied heavily on the support of landed peasants who distrusted the wicked city. It's the same thing in Japan. They praised the peasant soldier and denigrated the industrial worker. That's kind of weird. Sexism and misogyny. Women were urged to perform the traditional gender role and mothers to bear as many children for the nation. I suppose you could blame that on the right. Although, again, Trump has put women in some important positions. Our chief deporter in chief is a woman, if you hadn't noticed. So all this talk of misogyny is frankly just the political convenience. So there are some varieties of fascism, uh, racism, anti-Semitism, types of racism, identification with Christianity. Most fascist movements portray themselves as defenders of Christianity. So that's where the liberals come up with that party line. Support for Germany, that's irrelevant now. Mussolini and Hitler did not invent fascist ideology. It's not a 20th century creation, nor peculiarly Italian or German one. It originated in the 19th century out of France, as well as Austria, Germany, and Italy. A long list of authors and philosophers who came up with this concept. Anyway, enough of that. It's in the Britannica if you want to read it. And good luck, because it's rather voluminous. Okay, so there you have it. I guess a little reading and self-education, and you come to the conclusion, or I come to the conclusion that I guess we're all fascists to some degree, and that Trump is certainly not alone in embodying some of the characteristics that are classically associated with fascism. In fact, there's plenty of blame to go around there. And I guess the left needs to make up their mind as to whether he's a king or a fascist, a dictator. I don't see much evidence of either. I guess monarchies hand down power to within their lineage to the oldest born sons. And if you want to accuse anyone of being a monarch, I guess the Bushes were probably the leading example of an American monarchy. Yeah, certainly not Trump, or at least not yet. It remains to be seen whether any of his offspring are going to step up into politics. For a moment, it looked like Ivanka might, but she's faded out. So there you have it. If you want to read further, you can go to Wikipedia and read what they have to say about fascism and the history of fascism and violence and Mussolini and what have you. History of Europe around that time, United States, fascism in the United States. It seems that, at least they say that the fascist groups in the United States have rallied around Trump to try to take advantage of his populism. That doesn't make Trump a fascist. Unite the Right rally, they cite that. Oh, again, I would point to, they say Proud Boys, I would point to the fact that there have been several assassination attempts in the United States, all of them directed against Republicans. I can't think of a single, and since Kennedy anyway, I can't think of a single example in the other direction. You know, Steve Scalise, Republican, shot while playing baseball. Trump shot at twice, or attempted to be shot, assassinated twice. Charlie Kirk. That all points to let me find this thing here. That all smears or rubs off on the left. Frankly, I don't think you can tag Trump with that tag him with that fascist epithet. You know, the man he's proudly American. He wants America to prosper. He wants foreign countries to not take unfair advantage of our consumers and so on. I don't see any of that as being particularly fascist. He wants illegal immigrants out. You know, that's not the same thing as rounding up all the Jews and sending them to concentration camps. Illegal status is not a racist concept. It's you can be illegal and be of any race, and you're going to get treated the same way. You're illegal, you're out. He's not deporting Hispanics that are legally in this country. Much, although the left would want you to believe that people are being kidnapped based on racial lines, which is just baloney. All right, so that's enough on this subject. In conclusion, as you know, I like to summarize my thoughts in short, pithy sentence, and my summary of today's session is: we are all fascists now.